This is the Suzanne Kellner-Zinck show with Inside the Mind. Here to speak to you about kids and their parents' divorces. You know, many parents stay together because they feel they need to for their kids' well-being, sense of self, and security, really. However, the fighting, and even if there's not outward fighting, many times kids pick up on the negative energy between the parents. Something just feels kind of off. They realize their parents really aren't getting along so well. They feel it viscerally. The younger they are, the more in tune they are into these sort of feelings. The interesting thing is that, according to studies that have been done over the years, there's a very small differential between how kids do in the long term after decades after the divorce. Really, the truth of the matter is that when they follow kids for even decades, it seems like their academic achievements, their emotional and behavioral problems, delinquencies, self-concept, and social relationships, on average, very tiny difference between those that were children of divorce and those whose parents stayed together. And interestingly enough, it's really more a matter of how the parents contend with the whole situation of the divorce. So if the kid is put in the middle between the two parents, where one is speaking badly about the other, or one is giving all the gifts while the other one is the disciplinarian, these are the things that create more problems for the kids in the long run. There was actually a 25-year landmark study by Judith Wallerstern, the University of California in Berkeley, who presented a detailed case study suggesting that most adults who are children of divorce experience serious problems such as depression and relationship issues. And yet the scientific research doesn't support this view of the problems into adulthood at all. The 2002 book, For Better or For Worse, Divorce Reconsidered, Heatherton and her co-author, journalist John Kelly, describe a 25-year study in which Heatherton followed children of divorce and children of parents who stayed together. She found that 25% of the adults whose parents had divorced experienced serious social, emotional, or psychological troubles, compared with 10% of those whose parents remained together. This is only a 15% differential. And really, no one knows if that difference was caused by the divorce itself or by other variables, such as poor parenting, that often accompany a marriage's dissolution in the first place. 2003, psychologists Joan P. Kelly of the Corte Madera, California, and Robert E. Emery of the University of Virginia concluded that the relationship adults whose parents' marriages failed tend to be somewhat more problematic than those of children from stable homes. For instance, people whose parents split when they were young experience more difficulty forming and sustaining intimate relationships as young adults, and greater dissatisfaction with their marriages, with a higher divorce rate and poor relationships with a non-custodial father, compared with adults from sustained marriages. On all other measures, the differences between the two groups are very small. So, think about this. If you are in the process of getting divorced or thinking about a divorce, truly, the children might have some challenges in overcoming the difficulties of just relating to the fact that you are getting divorced. Although, interestingly enough, when I talk to the adults who I work with in my practice, some of them will say things to me such as the fact that their parents stayed together, but it was just like their parents really weren't really in love anymore, and that there were maybe not so many fights going on. However, there was an air of tension in the home. There was less ability for the parents to show love and care toward their kids because they were more wrapped up in their own emotional affairs due to the unhappiness in the marriage. And so I would really like you to think about your relationship, if you're in one, your marriage, if you're in one, your children, if you have them, in terms of what is best for your family and for your children in the long run. Obviously, no one can really know how anything as emotional as divorce could affect any given kid, because 2 or 3 kids from the same family will relate to it totally different, as each kid has their own personality, as we well know. However, for your own happiness and well-being, this too brings a lot to the child's life when you're happy and centered and able to give your full attention to that child. So long as you and your spouse have the understanding that the children stay out of the middle and that you do what you need to do for the well-being of those children, always keeping the children's health and well-being first and foremost in the back of your mind at all times in your communications. The gift for your doing this is to have healthier relationship with your former spouse and much more loving relationships and respectful relationships with your children. Thank you for listening. This is Suzanne Kellner-Zinck with the Suzanne Kellner-Zinck Show, Inside the Mind.